Okay, so for this one, we want to find the slope of the tangent line at x equals 2 and x equals 5, and here's our function. And I noted that it's easier to find an equation for the slope here. Since you have to find it for two different values, you'd have to work two separate limits. But if you just do it in general for any point, then you can do your limit once and then just plug in 2 and 5 at the end. So that's kind of the idea behind this example. I am going to work this using both methods so that you can see it both ways. I did want to kind of go back to this one. I had this one set up in the Desmos as 9, 2, and then the other point would be 9 plus h, and that would be your x value. And then you would plug that into your function to get the square root of 9 plus h minus 1. And if you did that method, you always do the limit as h goes to 0 because you want this x value to get to 9. All right, that's why you're doing it. So you want the limit as h goes to 0, and you're still setting up slope. You're still going to do the square root of 9 plus h minus 1 minus 2, so y2 minus y1, all over x2 minus x1. It's just x2 minus x1 is always going to be h if you use this method. Okay, so that's why, that's how you would set up the limit for that one. I wanted to show that one to you. Do you have to use h's or do you have to use this method? No, it doesn't matter. In this case, you solve it the same no matter what. You multiply by the conjugate. In this case, it's going to be the difference between foiling and factoring. So if you prefer to factor, you would do it the first way that I taught it. If you prefer to FOIL things out or multiply things out, you would do it with h's. So I will show both ways with this one so that you can see both ways to set it up. Okay, so if we want to find an equation for the slope rather than doing two separate limits, doing a limit every time we want to find the slope of the tangent line at a different point, we're going to need to pick two general points. Okay, so I'm going to pick X and A is what I'm going to call the other one. You can pick whatever letters you want. I just picked X and A. You can pick whatever you want. So if X is my X value, then 5X squared minus 2X is going to be my Y value. Remember, f of X is the same thing as Y. And if A is my X value, then 5A squared minus 2A is going to be my Y value. Okay, so those are my two general points for this method. We'll do the h's as well so you can see both. We're going to do the limit. It honestly doesn't matter down here whether you do a goes to x or x goes to a. I usually do a goes to x because I want to plug x in at the end. The second thing is what you plug in, and I like to have my answer with x instead of a, but it really doesn't matter. So then we just do slope. We can do x first, a first. It doesn't really matter as long as you keep it consistent on the denominator. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1. And I do need parentheses around this because I'm going to have to distribute the negative. So be careful with that. That's the number one thing that people will get caught up on. And then the denominator x2 minus x1. All right, so again, if we plug in x for all our a's, we're going to get 0 over 0. So we've got to do something, and in this case, we're going to factor and cancel. Now, pay attention to what we're doing here because the factoring and canceling is a little bit tricky with this one. So we're going to distribute the negative first. Again, that is the most common error on this. And again, these are not difficult to do. It's the algebra that is difficult to do. Typically, people figure out how to set it up. They just can't solve the limit because they can't do algebra. All right, so what we want to do is we want to group the powers together. So we want to group the squareds. We're just going to rearrange the numerator. And we want to group the x to the first and a to the first together. So we're going to group the powers. We cannot cancel things, by the way, unless you can change the numerator to be all multiplication. You can't cancel over addition. All right, so notice I'm writing the limit every time. This is going to take several steps, sorry, and I'm leaving this side blank so we can do the other method. I'm going to go ahead and factor. We're going to kind of factor by grouping. So we're going to factor the first two terms. So I can factor out an a, and I'm going to show all the details for this, so it will probably take extra steps. And then I'm going to factor out from the second two terms a negative 2. Okay. And then the reason why we're factoring out a -2 is handwriting on the wall. I want it to cancel with x minus a. We can't cancel it yet because you have to have an x minus a in every term to be able to cancel it. Technically, you need to be able to factor an x minus a out of the numerator to be able to cancel. So we're going to factor that x squared minus a squared as a difference of squares. So it's going to be x minus a, x plus a. And then we have -2 times x minus a. I am going to skip the whole factoring the x minus a out of the numerator because once you have one in every term, then it's legal to cancel. If you have questions about that, ask during class. But it is now legal to cancel that since we have one in every term. So we're left with 5 times x plus a minus 2. Now, we've canceled, so we're ready to go ahead and plug in the number, except for we have no number to plug in. We're plugging in a variable. So basically at this point, we just want to make all the variables be the same. So we're going to plug in x for the a, and we're going to simplify. So this is 5 times 2x minus 2, or 10x minus 2. So this is the formula for the slope of the tangent line at any point. So if we wanted to find the slope at 2, we'd plug 2 in for x and get 18. Or if we wanted to find the slope at 5, we plug 5 in for x and get 48. All right, that's a really big slope. So then let's do the other method. All right, the h's. So we start out the same way. We're going to pick we need 2 general points. One of them is going to be x, comma, the function. The other one is going to be x plus h, because we're going to, oops, not b, h. Because and that's not the whole point. Because we're going to go just a little bit away from x. All right, h is a little bit away. And then our y coordinate is going to be the function with x plus h plugged in. All right, so we're doing f of x plus h. We did this in the pre-calc review, not this exactly. But we plugged in random things into our functions, so it's like a composition of functions. You replace the x with x plus h. Okay, so this is your f of x plus h. So that's going to be our y coordinate. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and do the limit of slope. For this limit, we always let h go to 0 because we want these two to be the same, our x values to be the same. We're going to do our y2 minus y1. So we do our y2 minus y1. And again, I need parentheses around this to distribute the negative. All over, in this case, h, because x plus h minus x is going to be h. So we simplify. The difference between the two methods is one is multiplying and the other one is factoring. So we're not going to factor, but we are going to multiply the x plus h squared out. X plus h squared is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. We distribute the -2, so -2x minus 2h, and distribute the negative on the 5x squared and the 2x. And then we got to distribute our 5. So 5x squared plus 10xh plus h squared, and then minus 2x minus 2h minus 5x squared plus 2x, all over h. All right, so then things are able to be canceled at this point. So our 5x squareds can be canceled. The 2x's can be canceled, and we can maybe combine some like terms. I don't think there are any like terms actually. So we get 10xh plus h squared minus 2h all over h. And then notice that every term has an h in it, so we could factor out an h and cancel. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel them here. And then we're going to plug in 0 for h. There's only one h left right here, so that's going to be 0. The rest of it is 10x minus 2. So we get the exact same thing. It's just here we multiply things out and everything canceled. Here we had to factor. All right, so whichever one is easier for you. I actually happen to like the x's and a's better, but a lot of people like the h's better because then they don't have to factor. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do it.